Just to introduce a little bit, we are at France's AI, and we're going to talk about why China is AI. So let me tell you a little story how all this starts. So it actually starts in January of this year in Beijing. It was cold winter and the first visit of Emmanuel Macron in Beijing. Two things happened in January in Beijing of this year related to AI. The first thing is France signed a cooperation agreement with China to work on AI. The second thing related to myself is I announced that we were working on a $1 billion fund between Europe and China to grow AI in Europe and invest in a growth stage company in both Europe and China. From these two events, we set 4 pillars for the cooperation of France and China related to AI. The first one being talent. We want talent from China, being a researcher, entrepreneurs, investors, large company, head of AI and so on, to actually meet each other between France, Europe, and China. On that note, we actually are very happy as the French Tech China initiatives to bring about 40 people from France and China who have been picked up as young leaders related to AI. We have 2 today with us on stage. We have a delegation actually here in Paris, and the same delegation and possibly a little bit bigger delegation will come to Beijing next year. So the first pillar of the cooperation is talent, and the objective is to have people, like a human being, to actually know each other and exchange what you're doing and as a researcher, as an entrepreneur, etc. The second pillar of cooperation is research. So there is tons of cooperation right now happening at the research level between France and China. We actually have, I think, 2 visits already from the Ministry of Research and from France in China. A visit from Antoine Petit, who is now the president of CNRS and so on. The third one is on data. You know, data is a new oil in the world of AI. So how can we make data more accessible to each other? For example, related to healthcare and mobility and so on. We actually already have example of company like cardiologs who actually have been leveraging this relationship. And last but not least, funding. So we're working on a $1 billion fund, which is investing in a growth stage company, meaning Series B onward, $10 million minimum check size. And that's related to the application of AI in healthcare, mobility, environment, where the three main verticals that we are focusing on, along with education, media, and fintech. So we're going to discuss and exchange today on stage and try to introduce to a few of you who are not familiar about China and AI, why China is all in AI. You might have heard that China has set ambition to really become like an AI nation by 2030. Big impact on the economy. The projection for the economy is about 1.5 trillion gains in China, or plus 25% GDP for China thanks to AI development in the next 10 years. So basically the people of China being richer 25% from now in less than 10 years thanks to the AI development.
It's very nice to be here, and it's my pleasure. My first time to be Paris, and my name is TIAN, and this is me, the younger me. So it's very nice. And I'm the founder and CEO of AIT company. AIT, 3 letters, means Artificial Intelligence Tomorrow. But we are doing education for language learning. And now we're doing applications and tools for Chinese people to learn English better. And hopefully, in the coming future, we can do something that help Chinese people to learn French. So it's very nice to be here. And thank you.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for this opportunity. In fact, I've already spoken last yesterday for presentation, and so I could give a brief introduction of myself. So basically, I am a Chinese, and I studied mostly in China. But for the past like 6 years, I'm mostly back and forth between UK and France. I have been studied and worked in Oxford, Edinburgh, and INRIA Rennes. So I'm currently a researcher in INRIA Rennes. So I have the background and the working experience in the Chinese IT company Tencent for a short period. So basically, I think I could have some personal perspective of both AI in France and China. Maybe I could share a bit with all of you. Thanks.
So I think that's actually a good illustration of the new China. So we've got entrepreneurs, we've got researcher, who are actually international researcher, also working in Brittany right now in France, my hometown, and working for a large company. Tencent, for those who don't know, is the largest company in China, and one of the leader in AI, in healthcare and payment and so on. The first thing is we say like China is all into AI. There is obvious economical gain, but I think it really comes from like a need from the market. And maybe you guys can explain a little bit what are the needs in market that AI is actually helping to fix the problem that AI is actually fixing in China right now.
Okay, so
yeah, I could start because I think, like from my own perspective, is if you think of the people in China, we have a lot of engineers, and they really not just use engineering. They really believe in artificial intelligence, and this makes things much easier in China. So if you think of the e-commercial, the online shopping things in China, which is developing very fast, and because of people really like that, it makes life much easier. You don't really need to bring any cash or credit card. You simply use your phone to make a very quick payment every transaction you made. So this has, in turn, like in the other turn, attract a lot of fundings and opportunities, and also a lot of like human resources into this field. So this makes this kind of growing of AI like more like from bottom to up, and it's expanding, and then more and more people are attracting into this field. I think that's more like what I see the AI reality in China.
Just to bounce on that, to give some numbers. So we're talking about 800 million people who are on a daily basis online through mobile making payment. So it's not only the large tier 1 cities like Beijing and Shanghai and so on who actually have access to e-commerce and mobile payment, but actually tier 2, tier 3, tier 4 cities. Actually, one of the last IPO of e-commerce company from China, multi-billion dollars IPO, Pinduoduo, is actually mostly in tier 3 and tier 4 cities. Maybe we can talk also about the needs, not only for commerce, but actually for education and healthcare and so on, which I believe was very much like a one moment for China.
Well, first of all, as a founder of a startup, maybe I cannot tell the things about academy or the research that much, because I'm doing something that not that noble comparing to the purely research. When we do our startup, in the language learning field, we can feel the needs very, very strongly. A lot of students, they need better teachers. They want to practice and they want to talk with good teachers, but there's not enough. So the artificial intelligence that we do, our algorithm, we're hoping that they can be the partner to practice with our students. And in the very beginning, we launched an application to help people to learn TOEFL speaking part, that exam to take to go to abroad. And in that period, very beginning, we can get 10,000 useful voice data every single day. And now it's running faster and faster. We get more data. So the data, the market needs, the existing things that are the fundamental issue that we can all in the AI field. So I think that's quite important. Yeah.
I mean, just to give you also perspective about the scale and the needs for education. Maybe we can talk about scales like platform like VIP Kids and so on. So to give you like personal story, I'm a father of, I live in Beijing, I'm a father of 2 kids. My oldest daughter, 8 years old, she speaks French, goes to the French school, Chinese fluently, Chinese wife, and actually English also pretty fluently, and she's 8. And the reason why she speaks fluent English is not because she's actually learning English at school, even if she does. The reason is because she actually does online learning. English. She has like private tutors from America online with webcam and so on, teaching her English. Maybe you can actually give some numbers about like how big this is in China, platform like VIP Kids and so on.
All right. From the business side, the last round of VIP Kid is investment is I think is 200 million US dollars. I believe so. And there are millions of students, users of their application. And besides that, a lot of players are getting into this market. And people are really needy for some better and useful applications that, because they need more space, they need more opportunity to practice language, but there's not enough good teachers. They are growing all very, very fast. And hopefully there will be much better players in this field.
So VIP Kids, in that case, actually invested by Kai Fu Lee, who used to be the CEO of Google China. He has close to a $2 billion fund in China dedicated to AI. That's actually his best investment in terms of ROI. We're talking about tens of thousands of teachers spread around the world, Canada, USA, Australia, etc., who are teaching online Chinese kids. Maybe we can talk also about healthcare, because I was discussing yesterday with some other colleagues, speakers, that one of the wow moments of China was when DeepMind actually beat the best player of Go game, which is kind of the chess game on steroid, if you wish, in China. So you have AI who beat one of the most complex game champion, which is very much a pride of Chinese and Korean and so on people. But I believe there is another wow moment, is actually related to healthcare and how healthcare can be transformed by AI. So just to give you a perspective, in countries like France or Norway, where we were last week for the France-Norway AI Forum, or Finland, where we were 2 months ago, where we actually signed cooperation agreement between France and Finland related to AI. We have about 3.2 doctors for 1,000 inhabitants. And who think we don't have enough doctors in France right now to get proper treatment? Like, everybody's I can't hear one French people saying, oh, service is wonderful, we have too many doctors, too many nurses, etc. We still feel like we have to wait, etc. 3.2 per 1,000 inhabitants. In China, we're at 1.4. So imagine if you take 50% or more than 50% of the doctors and nurses in France, and they go on strike or they suddenly disappear. Well, that's how much doctors Chinese have access to. And that's at national level. If you go to tier 2 and tier 3 cities, which can count millions or tens of millions of people, they even have less doctor, can go down to 0.4 for 1,000 inhabitants. If you actually ask Ponima, the CEO of Tencent, where you used to work before, he tells people who are not very familiar with AI, if you don't understand the application of AI, just look at healthcare. That's already enough to justify investment. The second topic that I wanted to talk to you with you guys to share with the French and international crowd today is also the difference in culture, in mind, how people approach technology, and included AI in China versus how people, politics, and so on approach technology and AI in France or Europe, actually. How would you qualify China being, the Chinese people, the leaders of China? Would you say they are like techno-optimist or techno-pessimist?
Well, surely if I think if you think of our president, if you think of those big members in China, they mostly coming from having the engineering background. So I think that's also one of the reasons which makes them really believe in engineering, technology. And if you compare that to France, it might be a bit opposite, and people are really politics, they do their politics stuffs. And so I think that might also make like some difference when you make some policies, when you try to really get something done, and that will really make some difference.
I want to share one thing is that we start this program in 2015, At that time, all the people from the field, all our users, they don't believe that people can solve the language learning problem by using a very, very AI-oriented or AI-featured application. But only after 1-2 years, we can see the growth of ourselves, and we can also see the acceptance by users in the market. And when I studied in Tsinghua University, I thought the engineering thing or the artificial intelligence is only for the engineers, it's only for the coders. But now it's booming up. Everybody's learning how to code. Everybody's learning how to use the AI feature things to increase their efficiency of life or study or even entertainment. So I think that's the trend.
Yeah, I think it's really important to understand that if you actually ask French people how AI can be positive or negative, I think I will have to shortcut soon, but about 30% of French people think AI could have a negative impact for society. In China, about 90% of people think AI will have a positive impact. Last but not least, so I think there is we're not going to touch too much of this point, but there is a fundamental difference between China and France right now related to AI. France is very much focused on research. We have like long history now of mathematicians and so on, while China is very much focused on applications. So we were discussing that before where we were preparing. In China, AI companies have cycles that usually last about 2 weeks. It's not like a month or 6 months or a year or whatever. We're talking in 2 weeks, they're basically constantly like iterate and release new products. And last point as a conclusion is maybe also when we say, China is all into AI, like I think there is a bit of a misunderstanding of what China is actually like. So maybe you can explain a little bit here.
Right. So, like I just said, that I think when we say China is all in, it's more like from the like people, from the society. They really they enjoy the benefits that has been brought by the technology. For example, I've just given the example of like the e-commercial, like the very fast and convenient using your cell phone to make the payment. So this, like Ludovic just mentioned, on the other hand, has forced our IT companies to really accelerate our technology developing, and then which in turn makes this AI development very fast in China. Like we just mentioned, it usually takes like 2 weeks and 1 month. You can imagine it's very intensive collaboration between all the engineers, researchers, and even from administrative staffs, or even from PR level. We want to make out of this product and get it into the market so that it's competitive and people really use it, and it's really like producing some good benefits to our society. And on the other hand, if you think of the research or the AI in France, and my personal humble perspective is that I think people focused a bit more on the fundamental research part, which you can really stay calm and do some real research. Like the other day, I visited the institute in Paris, IHES, and I talked to a Chinese guy working there, and he was like, I think all of you should know that this is like the Paradise Institute for Mathematicians, and the Chinese guy told me it's like, since he came here, he feel like doing math is like some noble thing, and because he's really been served very well, and he feel like he has this calm moment. He can really doing this kind of research rather than like being driven to do some really application stuffs or engineering stuffs. So I think that made some two extreme examples, but it has reflected some difference between China and France.
Thanks a lot, guys.
Thank you
for sharing the experience.